response to this. Let's bring in our Trisha Terada. Go ahead, Trisha.
SPF, well, Malacanang admits things will be more difficult for the Philippines if the European Union suspends the GSP Plus for Filipino goods entering Europe, especially at this time when we are in the middle of the COVID crisis. The Philippines is a beneficiary of the special program under the generalized system of preferences, so the country's exports to the EU are granted zero tariffs. The privilege is given to countries complying with international conventions on human rights, labor rights, and good governance. This is important because with less or zero taxes on them, products from the Philippines like fruits, vegetables, garments, and so on can better compete in the European market. The GSP Plus status granted to the Philippines is very important to small and medium enterprises in the country. If the country's GSP Plus status is suspended, it would mean higher prices of Filipino goods in the European market, a clear disadvantage for Filipino exporters.
Sa panahon ng pandemya na nagkaroon po tayo ng economic contraction na 6.5 at inaasahan na mas liliit pa rin ang ating ekonomiya dahil sa COVID-19, talaga magpapahirap pa po lalo ang planong gawin ng Europe na isuspend yung ating GSP privilege. Kung gusto po nila yan, wala po tayong magagawa. Hayaan po nating panuurin nila na lalong maghirap ang sabayan ng Pilipino. Dahil tayo naman po mga Pilipino, mahigit 300 years na po tayong naghirap sa ilalim ng isang European country. Umuulit lang naman po ang kasaysayan. Tatanggapin din po yan ng mga Pilipino, pero tayo po'y makakaahon, taas noo, kahit anong gawin ng ating mga dating colonial masters.
Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says the EU Parliament statement is the result of misinformation from communists, particularly CPP founder Joma Sison. Roque stressed and added or addressed some points like that of Maria Reza's libel charge being a case of bad journalism and bad lawyering. He also stressed that the ABS-CBN case was a legitimate franchise issue. Besides, Malacanang says the courts in the country have always been open to responding to questions on human rights violations. Roque had earlier urged Congress and the Philippine embassies to correct alleged disinformation from Sison and to spread word about how the country is upholding human rights. But Malacanang says there's nothing it can do if the EU wishes to push through with its planned sanctions.
Diskusyon na yan. Gawin nilang gusto nilang gawin. Sa mga panahon nito, if they want to implement it, go ahead. They will be the biggest contributor to the violation of right to life of the Filipinos. Ganun na yun. Paulit-ulit kasi, sinasabi nila, human rights violations, sinasabi natin, bukas sa mga hukuman, ayaw naman nilang maniwala, nandito naman, pwede naman silang pumunta rito, ang tingin nila, mukha tayong Somalia na field government, wala. I'm sorry, I'm being very undiplomatic in my answer, pero what else can I say? At the time of pandemic, they're threatening us. Sos Mariosep, what else do we lose?
That's it. Back to you, Pia.
Yeah, Trisha, I'm not sure if you heard me. I lost my communication with you just a while ago, but the UK, France, Germany filing that note verbal with the UN rejecting the historic claims of China in the South China Sea. Also citing the 2016 arbitral award to the Philippines. What did Malacanang say about this, and aren't we going to do the same to aggressively assert our rights? I'm sorry, I did hear you a while ago for like 20 seconds.
Well, first, Pia Malacanang thanks the three countries for their support. It highlights the point that the arbitral award is binding. Although China doesn't acknowledge this, Roque says China has given consent to settle all disputes through the dispute settlement in the UN Convention on the Law of the Seas, or the UNCLOS. On your question about the chances of the Philippines doing the same, further asserting our rights, Roque explains that the decision itself is already an act of being assertive. The decision itself is victory. He notes that in the international law, there's policy or there's a body or there's no body that can implement this decision. He says the Philippines has limited options, one being to assume that the countries will voluntarily perform their international obligation or respect our rights.
Meron pa tayong ibang dapat gawin. Yung sinasabi nila na dapat gawin sa UN General Assembly, pwede po yan. Pero let's be realistic. Hindi po natin masusway ang 197 member ng UN kung ang kalaban po natin ay China dahil alam naman po natin limited ang ating kakayahan at sa politika, money talks. Yan po talaga, even in international relations. So, hindi rin tayo makapunta sa Security Council dahil merong veto power po ang China. So, yung mga nagsasabi na dapat maging assertive, ano pang dapat gawin? Hindi na po mabubura yung decision na yan. At habang nandiyan ang decision na yan, yan po ay pruweba na wala pong legal na basihan yung ginagamit ng China para angkinin ang South China Sea or ang West Philippine Sea.
Well, Malacanang says the government's policy has always been clear. While the issue of conflicting territorial claims with China remains unresolved, the Philippines and China will set this aside as they move forward towards other matters like in trade. Back to you, Pia.
Yeah, Trisha Terada there reporting. Trade